Hola humanos, here's a Zenza Bronica camera and a Fujifilm Instax Mini. And a few years ago I ran into somebody on the internet that sawed off one of these in half and put it as a back into one of these cameras which have replaceable backs. And actually I can't remember if I was looking to do it by myself and ran into that or if that gave me the idea, but either way I can't remember who it was that had the idea, but it just looked really janky to have a half sawn off plastic camera behind a beautiful Japanese camera with rubber bands. So I thought to myself, what if I make one back that will take the Fujifilm Instax Mini cartridges? And so I did. Yeah, so I'll try to walk through the process, and maybe it will help somebody design their own. Just want to make a super quick note about these cameras. If you're taking these apart, they do have, I think you call these a super capacitor. It's so that the flash has energy. It stores energy from the battery in here, and it lets you shoot flash powerful enough. These are super dangerous. This size might not kill you, but it would really hurt. You can ever touch these little leads. You could get shocked. I actually knew that this was a problem, and it still happened to me taking it apart by accident, and I got super scared. I think I got lucky that that it was kind of discharged already. But look on the internet how to manage them, because if you're gonna take the camera apart, you're gonna run into this guy, and it is dangerous. I'm gonna take a couple of photos. First of all, camera needs to be set in 800 ISO mode. That's because from what I could research, that's what the Fujifilm film shoots at on their Fujifilm cameras, on the Instax cameras. So that's pretty important for the proper exposure. And then you also have to set the door, I don't know what the hell you call it actually, but it needs to be set to the manual mode. This lower lever here. Let's see if I can focus on that. This is the normal mode. I think this is, I'll find out what it's called, but it needs to be set on multiple exposure mode so that you can shoot whatever you want. And then let's expose, this is probably the weakest part of my design here, is this ejection mechanism. You basically are pushing one film out at a time. So you have to push it here and then twist the rollers, and there goes the protective film. Then you push it back out like that. Now you can shoot some pictures. I think I can actually set the camera in auto mode for proper exposure. Here are some pictures. These all came out with the light leaks. I think it's because Well, because I'm sealing it with some electrical tape, and that's not the ideal material. I think it's a seal that's right here. Sometimes it bends out of shape, and I have to put it back. Something that I could have done better is like right there. I think every time you wind this dial, it like and you stop because it's not even. There's light that accumulates there every time you stop the one wind of this little wheel. That definitely should be addressed, because even if you did it at a perfect rate, your image would come like whiter because it has like just white light being hitting the film there. So I'm gonna take one more just to test this out. And I think if I close this window, I'll get a better less of a light leak on that. Let's see how this one comes out. And here's that last one that I took. You can see the light leaks are barely visible now because I ejected it in the kind of like in the darkness, or a little bit darker than it was outside. But you can still see like a faint lift over there. So here's how I went about it. I did this like 2 or 3 years ago at this point. So hopefully I remember what the hell I did there. So the first thing, something else that I forgot to say is that this, every time you take a photo, the way I did it, you need to kind of like ideally have this little lever out so that it doesn't raise the film a little bit. I think it might deform it. It probably doesn't make a big difference, but you have to remember to take it out, and then once you shoot, you push it. You have to push at the same time that you are winding this. So it's not the best, but it works. Originally I wanted to do something where the winding mechanism itself mechanically pulled this this hook into the picture, and then you only had to do one motion. It turned out to be a little bit difficult to fit all that mechanism in there. So I just went with this, and it works for the most part. Sometimes I have ruined 1 or 2 cartridges where this thing just doesn't want to push anything out because it got like multiple, I think, exposures hooked into it. Anyway, I'll go into the details, but just to repeat what I said earlier, you have to put this little lever, you have to put it on multiple exposure mode, or else this thing is not communicating with the body in any way mechanically, so the body doesn't know that it's shot picture, so you have to do that manually. And then the other thing is, if you have one of these prisms that can shoot automatically, you can set the ISO here, and it should be 800 because that's what this film is rated for. It's basically a very sensitive film that goes well with flash. That's the other thing. This will not work very well at night unless you have a flash, because these things rely heavily on daylight or flash, and 800 ISO. So the way you take it out in this camera specifically, you have to push this button here and it comes out. And I still had like a couple exposures there, so this is gonna be ruined. And this is the light leak that I was getting. It's basically where this top part meets the bottom one. It could be a better system there. It's supposed to seal that, but looks like still something very a very light, thin streak of light is going in there. So first things first, my first iteration was just this box here. I naively thought that if you put one of these cartridges in here, that you could just eject it and then it would like magically expose itself. But the way these things work is that the chemistry for developing the film is down here in like a little pocket. So these cameras have a little roller that I took from a donor camera. They have a little roller here, you can see it. And that squeezes those chemicals, it pops it, poof, and squeezes the chemicals out of the picture evenly, and it develops it. I didn't know that, and so my first thing was just a little box with a slot similar to this one, and then later I realized, and I was like, shoot, I need a roller. So I took the roller out of I had two of these, and so I was okay with sacrificing one. And then the roller had to fit in this weird position. It's kind of like offset from the original square that I had. It worked out in the end. Seems to be okay. And then that was one of it. The rollers are enclosed in this little box here. And this gear I also took from the camera. I just put like a guitar volume knob, glued it into it. I had to do some modifications, but and there's some electrical tape here to seal the any light leaks. So there's like a pretty snug fit there. So this is all this is. I don't want to take this camera apart to go over it, but it's just two little rollers and a couple gears that allow you to squeeze that those chemicals out of it. And so the only stuff that I took from the donor camera is like that little roller assembly, sorry, and these two springs. The rest is cardboard, metal sheets. This one is aluminum. Both of them are aluminum. They were just little sheets that I took and I tried to match. These as close as I could. I think I might have taken this one apart. Probably not. I think I didn't want to damage this camera at all. These parts are not the cheapest. So I just by eye and using some calipers, those measuring calipers. I tried to measure the widths and just kind of like drew it on a piece of aluminum. And actually with X-Acto knives, you can score and slowly cut away at it. You can get metal scissors too. And it took overall a good amount of time. I spent like a month on and off working on it, and it wasn't a quick project, I will say. So yeah, so the rollers came from the camera, the springs, and that's about it. The rest is cardboard. This is cardstock. I don't know what the width or the weight of this is, but it's pretty beefy. In some areas I doubled it. Like here, this piece of aluminum is sandwiched between two pieces of cardboard. And this is also aluminum. This is the mechanism that pushes the film out. If you can see, there's like a little hook. I'm gonna try to take a better picture of it. But this is just, this bigger plate is just to kind of like align it into place here. But the important part is this tiny bit here. And if you look closely at the camera, it has a similar hook down here. This one's motorized, and it pushes up and sideways, and it pushes the film out of the way. So I tried to replicate the same thing. It's basically a little hook that needs to be aligned properly with the first exposure there, and then you just push it until it goes out of this little slot here, and then once the rollers can grab it, then you can start rolling it out. And that light leak that I was talking about earlier, I think it had to do with this little flap here. It's supposed to push against the other part of the this part here, but sometimes the seal is not the best. Maybe foam core, not foam core, you know, that material is kind of like a foamy plastic thing, could work well there. I actually used some of that in other areas, or maybe this came from the original camera. I can't tell you for sure. I think this foam slot here came from the original camera. So a lot of super glue, a lot of wood glue, mostly for paper. For the cardboard, wood glue works great. And super glue whenever you have to glue metal and cardboard together. And ideally, if you can even do like tiny screws and pilot holes, you do like with a drill, you open tiny holes and you just screw it into the cardboard. It works well. This was one tricky part of the construction. These little light seals here, they were very difficult to make. I tried with like rubber bands and other methods, and they were so finicky you couldn't really line them up properly. So it's supposed to go into, supposed to fit into this groove here. That prevents, it creates like a kind of like a U curve there, and the light can't really go straight into anything. So you just need to figure out a way to seal this groove. And what I did is I took paper. So what I did is I traced, like I went with a pencil, probably something like this, and I took a pattern out of this. I'm doing it very badly right now, but this worked for me. I took an imprint just by tracing it with paper, and as you can see there, you can sort of make out where that groove is supposed to go. And then using this template, I found some black paper, I think, and I made like a little, it's like an L shape. This is actually it's like a folded piece of, very thin piece of paper. The corner is here. So what I did is I folded it like that, and then I cut very thinly, probably with an X-Acto knife and a ruler. I wouldn't have done it with the scissors. And then what you end up is like a very thin fold piece of paper that you can glue one end. Sorry, I'm probably off camera there. You can glue one of the sides, and then the other one basically fits in there. So that was one of the most challenging parts, is like making sure that you have like a tight seal It's 4 pieces that go into this groove. It can probably be made with other materials, but this one worked out for me. The other really tricky thing, let me cover my camera a little bit. So this camera, and probably many other cameras in this category, have a this curtain here that prevents they allow you to take the back, take it off, and then it doesn't expose the film that you have there. But the tricky part is that it has a mechanism it doesn't let you take out the back if this is not in place. So now I can take it out, but if I remove it, it doesn't let me. That's to protect the film by accident. If you take it out, you don't expose, you don't ruin your film, right? So the way it works is that when this cover is there, there's a little pin that protrudes there. If you take it out, you can see it recedes, the little pin. If you push it in, that pin lets the body know you're good. You can let the cover, the back, you can let it out. So basically what I had to do is have a pin here always pushing this in so that it lets me remove the back. And I learned the hard way because I didn't look at that at all. And basically the back, I did a pretty decent job at attaching this back here, and then once it was in there, I couldn't remove it, so I had to break the back a little bit. If you look at this little hole here, I had to break a little hole there so I could take the back out. And then this is the pin that I came up with. It's basically a little screw that I cut very short piece of screw, probably like 2 or 3 millimeters, and I screwed it in there in a little hole, and I put super glue, and just that little pin there is enough. It probably protrudes like 1.5 millimeters or something like that, and that is enough to push this and let you remove the back. And I think that covers it all. I think there's a lot of work that you're gonna have to do that I can't honestly remember. Lining things up and having the film at the right height here, because I think the film basically sits at a specific distance from the lens. That's pretty important. So this back plate here, the film sits on top of it, but it's at a distance from there to the lens, and that's why it keeps it in focus, right? So there was some calculations that I did to try to match that the best I could. It happened to work out with the width of the cardboard that I was using and how it sits, this part, how it sits there. So I think it was pretty good. See, so it's not really flush. It's kind of like receded a little bit. So that distance, that depth in there, you need to kind of like calculate that a little bit and try to match it. It's possible that it still works even if you're not that precise, but I try to be. And then the other thing was, the rollers were basically enclosed in its own little cage, and I think I attached them to the body with 2 little rivets that I probably took from the camera itself it's possible that they were already there, little screws, and I just opened little holes and attached the rollers to this part of the case, and then I just built like a little box around it, like top, front, bottom, and a side with as you can see, this side was an afterthought because of my original mistake. I put this plate here with a hole in it to let the knob go into it. All right, have a good one. Hope that was helpful. Probably a good idea to score when you are going to glue these metal sheets, is to score them with an X-Acto knife. Make like a some sort of pattern to make sure that the glue kind of like has something to grab onto. And also I mentioned super glue, but probably some sort of epoxy or something like that could also work well, even better. I don't know. Crazy glue, like Gorilla glue seemed to have done a good job. It's holding up pretty good. I did make like some little indentations into the cardboard there, so it's like kind of like hooked into there a little bit. Probably helps. And this one is, like I said earlier, sandwiched between two pieces of cardboard. And these are screwed on there with little pilot holes. This little hole is so that the ejection paper clip pin can fit through there. And there's a little bit of like foam core kind of material that goes into a hole I just pointed out, to prevent light from going in there. I'm not sure if it was necessary, but it seems to have worked. And here's a piece that I mentioned earlier. It's actually not aluminum. I think it's zinc or some sort of steel, because I did weld it with a soldering iron. like just with no lead, you know, the typical stuff with flux and the soldering core. So yeah, it's a little pin from a paper clip. It's a pin from a paper clip soldered to a piece of some sort of zinc or steel plate, and then I bent it into that shape. And notice how the little hook is like this little piece right there in the middle that I'm focusing on now. It's only protruding for like 1 millimeter or so, and that's because that's the width of the picture itself that sits in the front of the cartridge. You only want to grab one picture, no more, or else you'll be pushing more than one. So that was pretty tricky to get that right. I think it was like trial and error. The distance from the wall to that hook is dictated by this slot here in the cartridge. That's where that fits, and it's supposed to grab onto only one of those exposures, and it has to push it out. But as you can see, they're pretty close, so if you grab two of them, that would be a bad thing. So you need to make that little hook grab exactly one and no more, and then push it that way into this little window exit here. So it starts like this, and then you push it out, and that's what pushes the exposure out of the cartridge into this little hole here. Like so. Notice how I have two notches on either side of this, because there is like it matches the shape of these little cartridges. It has like also like a little ear there that extends, and it also has like another one that extends back here. This one here. So it fits right there.